Joining us today is the Eisner Award-winning writer of titles like Bitch Planet with artist Valentine De Landro, Pretty Deadly with Emma Ríos, Wonder Woman Historia with artist Phil Jimenez, Gene Ha, and Nicola Scott. Not to mention, she was the driving force behind the reinvention of Carol Danvers as Captain Marvel over at Marvel Comics. She's with us today to discuss FML, her punk rock coming-of-age murder mystery about a group of metal kids who face a medley of bizarre foes and encounters in Portland, Oregon during a worldwide pandemic. It is our great honor to welcome the original Riot Girl, Kelly Sue DeConnick, onto the Oblivion Bar Podcast.
Hello.
What are your thoughts really quickly? We've never asked this question, Aaron, but I feel like Kelly might be the first person that I want to actually hear some, some feedback on. When you have that big, long sort of verbose intro where you just lay out your entire bibliography, is that weird for you to sit there and listen to as we, go into the show?
It is weird, but it is less weird than, why don't you introduce yourself to the folks who might not be familiar with you?
Yeah. Okay.
It's so uncomfortable.
Which I deeply resent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's also weird to do a podcast.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a company now that's been sending me advertising, like, hey, we heard you on this podcast and we could get you booked on more podcasts. And
you're like, I don't want to do more podcasts. What are you talking about? I'm very limited podcast.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't have time to do the ones that which is not a lovely way to open our conversation. I'm delighted to be here.
You're here. We already got you.
But yeah, it's like, I don't need more things to put on my calendar. I need more writing time. Do you have an app for that?
Well, Kelly, trust me, we are fully aware. You do not have to like sugarcoat anything. We know what it's like as a creator or just as like someone in the comics that, time is of the essence. And also like podcasts are like on the 4th or 5th tier of importance. So we just appreciate the fact that you're here to talk to us.
I listen to a billion of them for what that's worth. So I appreciate the importance of them.
Well, maybe one of them will be the Oblivion Bar Pod.
Hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Matt said it was a lot of fun. So
you know what? We appreciate Matt. He was here with Michael Allred, and then we also had your friend Brian Michael Bendez on the show.
Yes.
So we're capturing all of the like upper northwest like Portland area comic creators like Pokemon. We're just like, yeah, we got them. We got them on the show.
So you need Greg Rucka, Steve Lieber. Like, we'll get you a list.
We'll get that after the show here.
The Pokédex.
Yes.
And Kelly, we were talking a little bit before the recording here. I feel like we had to at least give you just the smallest amount of shit. We were gonna talk to you prior to New York Comic Con, and then you went globetrotting to Spain for and tell me, it was something with San Diego Comic Con. What were you guys doing over there?
It was San Diego Comic Con, I guess, is franchised or licensed or something. There is now a San Diego Comic Con Malaga, Spain. So we went to go do that, and then we came home and got COVID, and then my husband was hospitalized for 4 days.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing is I was gonna give you like a playful like jab for rescheduling on us, but then I saw, I think it was maybe yesterday, that Matt was in the hospital. So I guess first question is like, how is Matt now? Is he doing okay?
He is.
Good.
He is well, and it's not the sort of thing that we think it was related to the COVID. We don't really know for sure because, I don't know, we don't have a CDC anymore. We don't track this stuff.
Totally.
So,
yeah.
But it was a rough 4 days, but he is healthy and well and back at his desk and just a little tired, I think.
Good to hear that. And then I guess also secondary question to that is, how was that San Diego Comic Con event? Because as you said, wasn't sure that San Diego was doing like this franchise thing where they, they'll go off to another country and sort of host their own version of San Diego Comic Con. So I was just kind of curious because I saw a lot of folks post about this, and I saw you had pictures of like Belen Ortega and a couple other creators.
Yeah.
How was that event for you guys?
It was terrific. It was maybe the best trip, international trip that we've done ever for work.
Wow. Yeah.
in terms of like I invariably will go somewhere and, you know, like our time together in Paris, Matt went out and saw the city and I spent the day in the hotel working on a script, you know, and like that sort of thing will happen a lot. And we actually had a really lovely time in Spain and were able to balance the time at the convention with spending time with our friends there. And just it was our wedding anniversary and we had not been together for like the last two
Oh, wow.
anniversaries, and so it was nice to be together and be able to finish a sentence without being interrupted by a dog or a child or, you know.
Yeah.
So it was pretty terrific. The con itself has some growing pains. Everyone was so lovely. We had, as guests, we had a very nice experience. I think there were some attendees that were not happy with the way things went. I think there was some, I don't think they were prepared for the crowds that they were going to get. And so the lines were pretty brutal, and there were people who like had tickets but gave up because they couldn't get in.
Oh, wow.
And so that kind of thing was hard. But if you think about the way a con usually starts, you know, it's like it's in a church basement, and then it's in a hotel extra room, and then it's in the hotel ballroom, and they kind of scale up slowly as they kind of get there to try to launch a San Diego Comic-Con as year one.
True. Yeah.
You know, there were gonna be some growing pains. I'm not shocked. I don't think anybody did anything malicious or inept. I think just growing pains, mistakes were made, and hopefully they'll do it again and get a little better at it. But you could not possibly be in a more beautiful place for it. I was just gobsmacked the whole time I was there. And also, Spaniards are disturbingly attractive human beings. Like it's rude,
I could tell you.
I think.
Well, I don't know. Here's the
rude.
thing: is that we were Aaron and I were at New York Comic Con, and we do work with comic sketch art sometimes, and we've got like Jorge Jimenez and Belen Ortega and Bruno Redondo and all these folks on our team. And you look at them, you're like, were you like sculpted from marble? What happened? Like, how can you be this talented and this good looking at the same time?
Every
I
con.
think Jorge is just not. You should just take Jorge off the table, because that's not, even for Spaniards, like, that's not cool. You can't.
Right. It's offensive how hot he is.
Like, and he's nice, and he's obscenely talented, and he dresses exceptionally well.
Yeah.
Was just like staring at his shoes at one point, going like, those are big boy shoes. I don't know anybody that wears big boy shoes.
These are not Adidas. These are like nice, like fashion, you know.
This is not this is not a unique thing. I mean, you got like Jenny Friesen. What's it? Piccolo. What's it? Gabriel Piccolo.
Gabriel Piccolo. Yeah.
Yeah, like
Candy Garcia.
So many people are just like exceptionally talented and exceptionally beautiful, and it is terrifying to me.
Just rude. It's just rude.
It's rude.
Yeah.
Well, I kind of want to jump into this conversation because I'm excited to talk to you, especially about one thing, which is our kind of shared past experiences, so to speak, because I'm not sure how many of those who are listening know this about you, but like myself, you're a military brat. You grew up on military bases while your father, Robert, served in the Air Force. And I also read about how your parents actually used to take you to local comic book stores, specifically Stars and Stripes bookstore on Hahn Air Base in Germany, as a reward for doing chores around the house. So let's start with this. Everyone in this chat knows Chris is military. I'm military. You're, military brat. What it's like being in that structured environment and how it can morph kind of your entire personality, to a certain point in your life. Are there any particular personality traits that you feel you've obtained from being around the military brat at such a young age? And then do you still have them now?
Gosh. Well, A, look at you doing your homework. So
That's what we do.
Cookies for that. B, I think that while I was growing up, I did not relish moving every 2 to 3 years,
Mhm.
but I think I got a kind of perspective from it, and especially because we moved internationally quite a bit. I grew up with the understanding that we're not the center of the universe. All things don't bend towards the way Americans like to do them. No one cares as much as we think they care.
Totally. Yeah.
And so that was a lovely, that's not bad news. That's good news, guys.
Mhm.
Like, that was a lovely kind of perspective to grow up with. And I did an interview last night with some academics who are working on researching a thing that they're going to do with Historia. It was a really extraordinary, just delightful conversation. And we talked a little bit about the idea of the warrior.
Mhm.
And, I took some. Can I curse on this podcast?
Please.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay. All right.
Fuck yeah.
Sweet. Whew. I took some shit when I was working on Captain Marvel for, contributing to the military industrial complex
Mm.
recruiting or whatever. And I mean, I'm certainly left of center, and I don't want to fuel the military industrial complex. At the same time, if there is a better way to keep the peace than to have a standing army, we haven't found it yet. And I would be lovely if we could get on that.
Mhm.
And there are a lot of soldiers and airmen that are these peaceful warriors that I have a tremendous respect for. And also, I think there's, this is a little bit of a tangent, but I have a real disproportionate soft spot for Captain America, whose weapon is a shield, which I think if they're, we talk so much about what toxic masculinity is, and, if we're looking for what are the models of positive masculinity, you couldn't do better than the protector,
Yeah.
and to have a character like that whose job is to protect those that stand beside or behind him, and to do so in a defensive posture rather than an aggressive posture is I don't know. I think there's something that's just astonishingly beautiful about that. So I think that ethos that I think some would probably find naive, I will have to own, but it is definitely a part of who I am, and I think it does come from growing up on military bases, and then there's also the fact that because of the unfortunate history of this country and the way hierarchies work, our military is largely comprised of underclasses. And so that, having grown up with poor folks who largely enlisted because that was the only option that we had to get the coverage that my parents needed so that, I could see doctors.
Totally. Yeah.
And then to have that be how my dad was able to finish school, I don't know. And to be for that to be the community that I grew up in means a lot to me.
Yeah. I think you kind of nailed it on the head too, within like the first 10 seconds, when you were giving that answer. I think it's the perspective. Aaron joined at a very young age. I joined at a very young age. Aaron, you were 17, correct? When you joined?
No, I was 18, but
18?
yeah. I have to echo what you said, Kelly, and that's that you absolutely do grow up with this completely different perspective, and it really is that exactly what you said. The United States is not the center of the universe. Not the entire world does not revolve around the U.S., and we don't necessarily do things the best as we like to bulk ourselves up to believe that we do. There are plenty of countries around the world that do things quite a bit better than we do. And some of those things, and I'll just go ahead and say it, some of those things are take care of its people.
Yes.
And that's also why we have this change, this difference in our society where, we have a military that, yes, is a quote unquote all volunteer force, but it does prey on those that are less unfortunate or less fortunate, less, able to move beyond their means. Whereas you have other countries where, everybody's treated like a certain, quality of life, and you have a mandatory service maybe a year or 2 years. So like there's things that you have to trade off for when it comes to taxes, care, law. And again, that's the other side of it. Is it's always double-sided. You have that growing up with a better perspective, but you also have, Chris, you grew up with roots somewhere. You grew up with with friends and family that you were close to, connected with. As a military brat, we don't do that. We don't get the childhood that is ingrained into a community. We are literally, our community is a nomadic lifestyle that we may attach to people for 2 to 3 to 4 years at the most. And so, yeah, it definitely is a strength, but it also leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, there is my dad's family is Italian, and they're from a very Italian American community, and I have a lot of identity tied up in that, but it was I got to visit a couple times a year.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, and those big, like the funeral that somehow becomes a party and everybody's smoking and drinking and playing poker and dancing. And it's, this sort of, I have fond memories of those experiences, but they were not I was visiting.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And, there is some element of, I like to claim that part of my family, but I'm a little bit of a pretender to it, because it was only a thing I got to experience, like I said, a couple times a year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Growing up in the Midwest and joining the military at a young age, you have this, and I sort of shudder to use this word, but like there's a bit of indoctrination that goes along with being, I'm from a small town in Indiana, where they go, everybody in your circle tells you this is this honorable, selfless thing to go and join the military. And then you learn almost instantly that like you are not protecting anything. You are painting fences and standing at attention most of the time.
Yeah.
But I think that honestly, there's something also I think very valuable to it.
No, I think there's something, in fact, even more beautiful about that. We were talking at Worldcon. I was on a panel talking about women in the military. And out of the gate, it became this one of the other panelists was women shouldn't be in the military because we shouldn't have a military because, we should literally, and she was kidding sort of, but she was like, literally we should, she said, be, gardening, knitting, and taking care of the children. And she meant like everyone. It wasn't a like anti-feminist thing, but like it was this weird, and instead of like training people to kill people, and this conversation was going on for a bit where we were talking about the theoretical versus the practical, and no one wants war. I think, unless you're a crazy person, and certainly we have some crazy maniac want to kill people in the world, but that's not most people. It's not most soldiers. It's not. That's errant and weird. And we were probably 3/4 of the way through the conversation when I was like, can we please stop and talk about, like, this is not, most people that serve are never going to fire a weapon outside of training. Most hunters have more kills than most people that serve in the military. And we have all the military folks that showed up to help us get our vaccines, and the Army Corps of Engineers that always come in when some place gets flooded nearly out of existence. And that is as much a part of the military as the fighting or the being prepared to fight as a deterrent. And there's all kinds of fucked up things that as Americans we do with our military, and I'm not defending any of it. What I'm defending is the soldiers and the fact that, practically speaking, we have not evolved to a point where we don't need a standing military. And also these people do a lot of really wonderful things that have nothing to do with hurting anybody.
We wish we didn't need them, but we have them because we do. And it's going to be a necessity, and you're exactly right. It's going to be a necessity until we, are able to evolve past these trivial things that put rifts between us. And as people, as a society, as freaking humans, it seems like something so simple that we can't just get along. But yeah, it's all unfortunate.
Well, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm going to dig us out of this military hole, and we're going to get into some, because as you said there, Kelly,
we could have
Aaron
a whole
and I
conversation on it.
We could use this entire conversation talking about the nuance of being in the military and what the military represents and what it's like in the military, all those things. But I think while we have you here, before we actually get into FML, I have to ask you, you recently said on the Pop Culture Squad podcast, speaking of your podcast appearances, and also shout out to Bob Harrison, all the good work he does over there.
What a lovely human being.
Totally. Yeah, Bob rocks. Here's what you said. It was really profound. You said, I'm constantly in a state of fear and regret while writing. I've learned to keep going anyway. And when you said that, I sort of noodled on that idea for a moment after you said it. And, someone who firmly believes, and I apologize for the brown nosing here, but I feel like you've cemented yourself as, one of the singular voices in comics and definitely one of the all-time greats in this medium. And I guess I would just love to hear you, just a quick aw.
Aw, thank you.
Oh, shucks.
I'd love to hear you sort of expand on the idea of like where that fear and regret still comes from the current state of your career.
I mean, there are things I know I've gotten better at, but the process of learning anything, every time you level up, you're sort of opening your eyes to how much more you have to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I ever get to the point where I think I've got it down, I suspect I've reached a point where I'm lying to myself and I need to retire. Because you just learn so much more about what's possible and what you haven't been thinking about. And so there are undoubtedly things I've gotten much better at with practice. And one of those things is sort of trusting that I'm going to figure it out. So when Emma and I were doing Pretty Deadly, which was my first creator-owned book, we had done a couple of Marvel things together. And so it was like, let's do something we own. We started working on this. I pitched her a couple things. We developed it a little bit. I started writing, and then I got stuck, and I reached out to her and was just like, look, I am sorry I convinced you to do this. I'm sorry you got into business with me. I'm going to pay you back for the time that you've wasted. Don't know what I'm doing. And I'm very embarrassed, but I want to own this. And she wrote back. And the thing about, if you ever meet Emma, she's a tiny she's very slight. She's like an elfin person.
We know a few of those.
Yes. And she's Spanish, but she does historical European martial arts. So she does like sword fighting with like the long sword and the dagger and she's a badass, but a tiny, tiny little badass. So, she's actually quite soft-spoken, but in my head, she sounds like a Russian ballet instructor. So when I like tell Emma stories, the Emma that I do is the Emma from my head, not the Emma from reality. But She wrote me back and said, "My sister, you do this every time. You freak out, you go, oh, I'm terrible, I can't do it. And then you disappear to your dark place, and I don't hear from you for days. And then you rise like the Kraken." And I have my script. And it was this this gift that she gave me where she contextualized it for me that, oh no, getting lost is part of my process. Writing to the point where I'm like, well, I don't know what's going to happen, will certainly ensure that the reader doesn't know what's going to happen either. Now, I always know what the ending is going to be, or at least I have a direction I intend the ending to go, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. And frequently I am surprised by the corners that I turn that I didn't know were there. And it used to be a lot harder than it is now, but that doesn't mean that there isn't some voice in my head every time that's like, ooh, maybe this will be the one you don't figure out. Probably I will. And I've also learned like some of the things that will help me figure those things out. But I don't seem to be able to rush the process, which is a thing that I'm not happy about, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Does it change at all that you know that it's a process? Like it's something that happens cyclically?
Yeah, it does. I mean, it makes it, I'm fortunate that both of my children see themselves as writers. And so I've gotten to have a lot of really wonderful writerly conversations with them of late. And my daughter was asking me the other day about being stuck and like, what do you do when you have, well, actually the way she articulated it was like, what do you do when you have writer's block? And we talked a little bit about what was going on. And I was like, oh, honey, you don't have writer's block. You're just stuck. Like, and that's a different thing. And what you need to do is change canvases. So set that aside, write something else, and the back part of your brain is going to keep cooking on it. And you come back to it every once in a while and you check in. And there are a few tools that you can use to try to box some things loose, and you can go back and figure out, like, did you get stuck because there was a problem earlier on? Is your problem in your third act actually a problem in your first act or whatever? It's possible that you just need to give it a rest and give your brain a little bit of time. And that's a very different thing from being blocked. Blocked is, I don't want to write. I don't know what to write. And I don't have the drive to sit and get something done. And stuck is, I don't know what to write next. I don't know how to work my way through this. And then there's also another thing that can happen as a sort of fear paralysis that happens a lot with
imposter syndrome, all that.
Yeah, younger writers will have this thing where they can't make themselves get the work done because the idea, when you have this idea in your head, right, it feels like it's perfect. It's so exciting. It's really great. And then as soon as you take it out of your head and you put it on this piece of paper, now you have some perspective on it. And now you can see, oh, look, there's some problems here that I couldn't see when it was right up against my eyes, right? And now I'm less enamored, and now the wind has been taken out of my sails, and I'm less sure of myself, and I kind of want to, I'm just a little embarrassed, and I just kind of want to put it away and walk away. And I never tried that, and you have to be able to get past that, because you can always make a thing better that you've written, but you don't get to skip that step. And, I don't give a shit about your ideas if you don't ever make anything. I'd rather have a shitty book than a great idea.
Yeah. Put that on a t-shirt. Carve that into a piece of wood.
One of those things is a writer, and the other one is a dreamer.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, most people who are like the first to criticize and the ones who have the biggest opinions are those who have never created a thing in their life.
Oh, that's that, get into the ring. It's real easy from the outside.
Yeah,
and
totally.
you know, there's also, I certainly have critique for other writers' work, but there's a level of respect that comes with it too. That's like, yeah, you got in there and made it.
Yeah. I always tell Aaron all the time that I will always respect a swing. You
Yeah.
know, even if I don't necessarily love the execution, if you really go for it, my gosh, I because at least then we can talk about it.
Yeah.
And like there's something to discuss and all that. So, and you said something a moment ago that reminded me, I had this conversation with Brian Azzarello a couple years ago where he talked about how and this could just be like, cause Brian, God love him. But he's kind of a curmudgeon sometimes.
A little
And
bit, you think?
and he said something to the effect of like, I don't read comics. That's why I'm still writing comics. It's because he says that he doesn't like to read the medium that he's working on. He finds his inspiration from other pieces. And you mentioned a moment ago about how when, you know, your daughter is stuck, or yeah, when she's stuck, you will tell her to move on and do something else, maybe draw a picture or watch a movie or you know, whatever that other
Or
activity is.
write something else.
Oh, sure. Even,
You
yeah,
know?
totally.
You just gotta just change canvases. That's,
Mhm.
you know, I mean, all the things that will get me unstuck most often are going for a walk, taking a shower, or going for a drive.
Mhm.
I think that something about the keeping your body activated and getting away from your desk helps in some strange way, and you let your mind wander in a way you kind of can't staring
Mhm.
at the blank page. But yeah, I mean, I don't want to fight Brian, and I don't well, okay, I do. But I don't read as many comics as I should, and I think you should certainly. I'm not a big fan of comics about comics,
Hmm.
and I mean that not in the instructional way. I'm a huge fan of like Scott McCloud, and
Yeah.
who's done more for this industry than most anyone. But
Yeah.
I mean, superhero continuity comics about superhero continuity comics
Oh,
that
sure. Yeah.
where they sort of stop being about anything outside of the comics, or
Mhm.
you take your chance to do an indie comic and you make it about how much you don't like doing corporate comics.
Very meta.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's meta, but it's also
Boring.
Yeah.
self-indulgent, and does it really have any actual, is it art?
Yeah. What are you
Like,
saying?
and oh, I'm just picking fights here.
CBR, you listening? Kelly Sue DeConnick does not like Watchmen. You heard her here first on the Oblivion Bar.
Hates it.
That that was not what I was thinking of. But sure, we'll go there. But yeah, there's a that I can concur with Brian in that way. But if he means to say that comics aren't good enough to be worth his time, then
Yeah.
fuck you, do something else.
I'm not sure he said that. I don't want to put any words in his mouth, but you know, if he did, I kind of agree in a way,
Yeah.
you know, because no, don't hurt my precious baby comics. You know, these are ours.
Yeah.
So
Well, and you shouldn't work in a medium you have disdain for. You shouldn't write for readers you have disdain for.
totally, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Aaron, unless you have something to build off that, I want to get into FML because, you know, we've been here for 30 minutes now, Kelly, and we haven't talked about one of my favorite books of the year thus far, and I need to pick your brain on it. So,
All
Aaron,
right.
Aaron, anything before we move on to FML?
No, I want to talk about FML. I appreciate the candor. I appreciate the transparency and the the honesty.
Yeah. You've said something really, before we actually get into FML, you've said something really profound to me about, or not to me, but just in general about honesty. How you said that you're not wanting to start fights, but you're not afraid to start fights when it comes to honesty. Do you remember saying something like that at one point?
Oh, I probably did. I don't
Mhm.
remember it, but that sounds like me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not trying to piss people off, but also you have to have a point of view. I'm also not afraid to be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Am I wrong? Teach me something.
Exactly.
So, it's all fine. And I don't like something I say getting taken out of context and being made into a clickbait thing where they're taking a disingenuous position on what I said to try to stir up controversy where there isn't any.
Which has happened to you an annoying amount of times throughout your career as someone
It
who's been a
has
fan of yours for a long
indeed.
time.
I wonder why.
I couldn't even place it, Kelly.
How
It doesn't
weird.
even come to
What
mind
do
why
you
you would be the
think
person.
it could be
I don't know.
about?
Interesting. Yeah, that's something.
I don't know.
Someone
But
write in.
but yeah, so I mean, I don't love that part.
Mm-mm.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a particularly taking a position like, you should probably love comics if you work in comics feels about as brave as I am anti-child abuse,
Yeah,
so
not really a jump
Same
off the
vibe,
cliff.
Same
Yeah.
energy.
yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's get into FML here because I've been wanting to talk about
Yeah,
this.
yeah,
And when we were first approached to talk to you, and it just so happened that sort of coincided with the sort of the end of the first arc of FML with issue 6. So of course this is your Dark Horse series with David Lopez, colors by Chris Peter, and letters by Clayton Cowles.
Yeah.
I'm going to give a brief synopsis for the layman in case folks for some reason, if they've been under a rock for the
yeah.
last,
I'm going to offer one quick correction,
Please.
which is the first arc is not actually done yet, and it goes to issue 8.
Oh, okay. There you go. News to me. Perfect.
right.
Thank you so much for the correction. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries.
So again, quick synopsis here. So Riley is a teen that sketches out his heavy metal future with a ballpoint pen between monster movies and band practice. But musical stardom needs to compete with high school, the temper of a former riot girl mother, the morbid obsessions of a goth sister, and the craziness of the bandmates that threaten. And the craziness of his bandmates that threaten to drive him and everyone around him insane. The balance gets harder after ritual during a party in Portland's Forest Park causes him to wake up one day to discover that the creatures, witchcraft, and metal world that he obsesses with may be a bit closer to home than he preferred. So, Kelly, we recently had a panel. This is a weird, shameless name drop, but we had a panel at New York Comic Con, and we were asked, what's a current series that you think should be on everyone's pool? And again, here's another shameless attempt at brown nosing. I said FML. So let's start. Oh, there's another. That's Aaron. That's 2.
That's 2.
Let's put that on the check mark for 2. I need 4 to unlock the key to time.
All right.
So Kelly, let's start here. How did this idea sort of land over at Dark Horse? And then also, why was David Lopez the correct collaborator for this series?
Okay, so it started with David and I were at the
David, is it David? Am I saying it wrong?
David, yes.
David. Okay, I apologize. David Lopez, is that correct? David
Yep.
Lopez? Cool. Right.
Although he is very not picky about it. And he'd be like, the first time I called him David, he was like, "Ooh, David." Like, it's your name. But David and I were at the premiere of Captain Marvel, and we were at dinner with our families, and he was like, we should do something creator owned together. And I was like, yes, we need to find the right idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had an interesting experience working with David on Captain Marvel in that I felt like I didn't figure out how to write for him until our last issue together. He writes this very expressive cartooning. And so I kept always chasing that tone and trying to up the humor and catch it. And I could never seem to get it aligned right. And on the last issue, I kind of gave up. And I mean, I'm happy with our run. I'm very proud of our run. There are a few issues in there that I'm very proud of. But it wasn't until the last issue of the run when it was a bittersweet thing. We were saying goodbye to Carol, and my aunt that I had based one of the characters on died from cancer,
Oh.
and one of Carol's supporting cast members had cancer, so that I could kind of deal with that in parallel. And so Carol was saying goodbye to her, and I just wrote the comic and didn't try to chase David, and then he nailed it, and it was absolutely beautiful, and was like, oh shit, well, this is not the moment to figure this out. And so at that dinner I was like, well, yes, but we need to have the right tonal idea. And he would come to me every couple years and be like, hey, I'm like, yeah, I don't know. And then at some point he was like, let's do he loves high fantasy. And so he was like, let's do like a high fantasy thing. And we messed around with because Matt said, he was like, a magic school. And I was like, I don't think I really want to do my Hogwarts. And I was talking to Matt about it. And Matt was like, no, but you should do your DeVry. Like, what
It's a
is
very Matt
that?
Fraction thing to say.
Yeah, I was like, if Hogwarts is the Eton of the magic world, what's the DeVry of the magic world? That's what you should write. And I was like,
Mm.
oh, fuck. And so I dicked around with that for a little while. And that got us into the writing about a group of kids. And then David, was wanted to do D&D stuff. And then I was like, well, what if we wrote about like a kid that plays a role-playing game, and I had discovered this band Necrogoblicon and was kind of obsessed with the fact that they had like an ogre hype man kind of or he's not an ogre, he's a goblin. My bad, John. I'm sorry. I apologize if
You
you're
need to
listening.
apologize to our audience for Kelly Sue's very insincere and inconsiderate goblin reference.
Yeah, that's right. And so I liked this idea that, so I saw the picture of the actor that plays John Goblicon, and like he's very handsome, and I was like, what? And it was something that was really funny to me, that he would deliberately make himself into this, and he's not like, it's not like a big powerful, like he's like the goblin schmuck, and there was just something really fantastic about that. I loved that. And I had the idea that a kid was going to do a One Crazy Night story with a kid who's big D, paints minis, does monster making stuff, and his friends have a band, and they convince him to dress up like the goblin to be like a hype man for their band. But being the goblin gives him the courage to talk to the girl that he likes, who's the girl that works the merch desk or desk table, whatever. And then like the money box gets stolen, and they have to go chasing it down, but he won't take off the goblin thing because he doesn't want her to know that it's really him, because she's never talked to him before. So that started to be like, and then I did all this research on like One Crazy Night stories and started working on that. And then we did 7 pages of that and scrapped it. And I mean, I still think it's a good idea. There's some part of me that's like,
we're cutting you off, but is this the person you're talking about during this in Necrogoblicon?
Yeah, that's him. And you have to watch the Dressed as Goblins video.
Okay.
He also does interviews.
Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we did like 7 pages of that, and then it wasn't quite landing. Part of that was because I was really trying to have the D&D stuff be a big part of it, and I was faking it because I'm not a high fantasy person, and I think you can read when somebody's lying. And so David was like, just do the thing that you want to do. And so then it became, it's the same kid, but it's a different story. Like I said, I still think that other idea is a good idea. It's a little too close to this one, though. I don't know if I could do them both, but maybe someday. You never know.
Hey, spinoff.
Hey,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I read the first 3 issues as they came out, and then I caught up as we were preparing for this conversation. And I remember, Aaron, I can't remember if I texted you this or if I told you when we were in person in New York, but I was like, this comic is like, I feel like you, Kelly, you and David sort of got into my brain and sort of just like picked out not necessarily what I want in a comic, like in terms of like storyline, but like how I want a comic to be told. You know, like it is just so funny and energetic and smart. It does all those things that I really, really like in comics when I see those happen. And you don't see it, again, not to poo-poo on the big two too much, but I don't feel like you don't get that enough, the big two. You kind of have to go for something like this specifically at like a smaller press publisher. And I had a question for you while I was curious, you know, you're sitting here talking about the collaboration between you and David going into this series. What do you think he really brings to this series? There's like obviously he brings a lot to it, but is there a specific thing that you feel like if you didn't have him on board, this series would just not at all reflect what you guys currently have?
The pace, for one thing.
Okay.
Like, because he's such a high energy human being, it really makes me very deliberate about making sure there's a lot happening and there's a thrust that gets us through every issue. And then when we slow down, it feels like, oh, we are slowing down for a moment to look at this thing or to feel this emotion land. Or, you know, I think David's energy is the biggest thing that he brings to it. But there's also that I don't know how many people could do as well as he does what he does with the different we use objective and subjective storytelling. So there's the objective style that is David's style, and then he has developed an art style for the mother character and an art style for the son character. And they are distinct enough that you can recognize them as different from one another and different from the subjective style or objective style rather, but they're alike enough that you can put them on the same page and it all works. And that's deceptively hard to do. And he makes it look very easy.
Yeah, totally.
I 100% agree with that, because that's one of my favorite things about FML so far is the pacing and the different kind of perspectives all told. I don't know, it feels like it could be complex. Like when you look at the pages, you're like, this could be like a very complex story that you're about to jump into. But at the same time, it's so fluid and seamless and just meshes with everything in the style. I don't know. I enjoyed it very much, like reading through it. But Kelly, it turns out that you're the high priestess of profound single sentence paradox.
I'm gonna have that put on my business card.
Yes, because here's what you said leading up to the release of issue 1. You said there's a difference between what something is and what it feels like. FML is about the wind chill and not the temperature. And I love that quote. How do you properly capture what something feels like without directly telling the reader what the feeling is? Or do you just come out and say what the feeling is and then create a write of a comic that illustrates that feeling?
No, I mean, I think the reason I couldn't do my One Crazy Night story at the time I wanted to do it was because I was so swimming in moment of feeling like, and it's not a moment, it's been several years now of feeling like, you know, suddenly the world was coming at me on blast. And having my kids are now 15 and 18.
Oh.
And they are, you know, what is it for them to have their childhoods interrupted by this global pandemic? And how am I simultaneously honest with them and giving them the space and the protection that they need to feel safe so that they can enjoy their childhoods and develop as rational, productive, pro-social human beings? And, you know, and these were, and also I had this feeling of, what what do I have to say in this moment when everything is off the rails and it's all coming at us 100 miles an hour every day? I don't know what to add to this. It was just a like, I don't have any words of wisdom for anybody. And so there was a little bit of surrender in that. And then I think a lot of what FML is just coming to terms with this idea that we're all doing the best we can, that this is what the world feels like right now. And, when last night, the conversation I was having with the academics about Historia, we were talking about tragedy and, that when I was a kid, and I will translate this into nerd. So if you take, the Wrath of Khan and the Kobayashi Maru scenario, when I was 12 years old, and if you don't know what the Kobayashi Maru scenario is, you should probably Google it.
It's a good learning experience for everybody that's listening doesn't know what that is.
Yes.
It's an unwinnable simulation, okay? It's a scenario where there's not supposed to be an outcome, but there's one person who did beat it. I won't name names.
Okay, so I will name names. Captain Kirk.
James Tiberius Kirk.
Yes, beats the Kobayashi Maru scenario. And when you're 12 years old, you see that and you're like, yeah! He's thinking outside of the box. And, there is no such thing as an unwinnable situation. You just don't play by their rules. And man, and then you're 50 and you're like, no, he fucking cheated. He reprogrammed the scenario so you could win it, thereby avoiding the test, because what they were testing was not, can you win? What they were testing was, who are you in an unwinnable situation? What are the choices that you make? The test was of your character, and he failed. And being unwilling to face reality or unwilling to enter a fight you cannot win is immaturity. Bringing it back to Greece, Martha Nussbaum has this book that I love called The Fragility of Goodness. And one of the things that she sort of introduced, I think I saw her in a video talking about this, but she was saying like, no, you're not, as a modern human being, or even as an ancient human being, you're not going to have to choose between the life of your daughter and your army, but you will have to choose perhaps between showing up for a meeting that you really have to be at for your job, or being at your kids' play where they really want you to be there. You are going to fail someone because you cannot reschedule these things and you cannot be in two places at once. So who are you? How do you make that choice? How do you navigate that situation? Who we are as people in fights we can't win matters. And that, I think, is a bit of the DNA of FML. I can only do so much. I don't know how we change the election. I don't know how we make sure that we're taking care of people. I don't know how to handle a budget or what our taxes should be, but I know that we have to look after one another, and I know that we have to be honest with our children and with each other, and I know that we just kind of have to do the best we can every day and try to put together a good life that way, and there is no right answer. And so that's what the book ends up being about, is trying to navigate this moment where it feels surreal. The wind chill is just nuts. Every one of these answers has been way longer than what you wanted or intended, but sorry.
No. Here's the thing. We want all the noodling. We want the long answers. Absolutely. Totally. Yeah. And I totally agree. Aaron and I, again, we're going full circle here, but being two folks who are prior military and Aaron being, into his 30s, again, prior military brat. I'm a straight white dude in the Midwest. Like I should be voting for this. And yet I see all the craziness around us, and I cannot do nothing but plan for the eventual argument I'm going to have with my uncle at the upcoming family event.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking like, here are the 6 things that I can say to really get him, in this current landscape we're in. And to go on what you were saying there, Kelly, I'm probably wrong for thinking that. Like, as a well-intentioned as it might be, I should be like, maybe there's like a valuable conversation to be had instead.
Yeah.
Or maybe I should spend my time instead going to an actual protest, or helping educate someone who maybe just wants to learn more. Maybe my younger sister who wants to learn more about politics and the world around us outside of our white body, like these all things that I could maybe do better.
It's about where you put your energy,
Yeah.
Totally.
They're not mutually exclusive, but they're not tied together. Being a decent human being, and then I'll say it, like, being an American. There's a difference between being a patriot, which is somebody who loves what America was built for, what's, the foundation of it, and then there's nationalism, which is we all fucking know is terrible. So, but we should all be focusing on being decent human beings who are also Americans, or who are also wherever you're from, and taking care of each other. That should be the foundation. It shouldn't be the commercialism, or it shouldn't be your loyalties. It should be loyalties as a human to being just a good person. So at least that's just my opinion. I retired last year from the Army. I spent 20 years, the last 13 of it was as a public affairs, basically chief of public affairs. So I had a lot of time. I actually worked with Stars and Stripes. I wrote for their newspaper for a couple of years while I was stationed in Germany the second time.
Oh my gosh, right on.
Yeah, so I've seen the perspectives. I talked to a lot of our partner forces, and and again, we could talk about politics and the military and the machine of all of that.
Getting into this hole.
Yeah.
But I'll just say this: I want to go back to the quote about the difference between the wind chill and the temperature, and I absolutely agree with that. Is a great idea for anybody that is a storyteller. When you can get your audience to feel something without telling them what it is an insane accomplishment. And I did feel that several times while reading FML, and there's just those moments where I was getting like anxiety in the pit of my stomach, and I'm just like, I don't know how they're going to get through this. Like, I am invested in these characters, even though they're completely, again, like, out of the box. They're just nuts. They're all like, and I don't use the word zany very often, but all these characters are so unique. And when they get into the different, situations in this book, it's so great because, the writing is there where it shows that you can feel something without naming it. And that's incredible.
Yeah. I love them so much. This cast is just sort of immediately.
Do you have a favorite?
I mean, so taking it back to my daughter again, there was a point where she and I were talking about the book, and we were talking about the fact that, the characters are, started out as being based on our family, but they've moved away from that and are kind of their own people now. And, and she was like, okay, so, Lil is me, and Riley is Henry, and so your mom. And I was like, yes, but also I'll tell you a secret. I'm all of them, because we never really fully escape our own perspective. And when I'm writing any of these characters, I'm really trying to see the world through their eyes as best I can. And so I feel attached to all of them. The easiest to write for me is probably Patty, but
Patty cake.
I think Lydia is the Penny of this book. Like in Bitch Planet, the character that everyone loves is Pennyroll, and Lydia is the one that everybody seems to. And that's kind of fun because she came out of nowhere. I don't know where. She's not based on anybody. And she was just an extra that raised her hand in the scene.
Yeah.
And then was like, ooh, let's see where this goes.
I love
And then
that.
she was
I love
part of the
that.
band.
It just took its own like
Yeah.
center stage. Somehow a character in your story has main character energy. And
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Patty Cake is my favorite. I gotta be honest. There's that scene where, and I'm not gonna no spoilers, but there's a scene where Patty Cake gets like 5 minutes to herself when she never does, and she just goes into her office and just starts dancing. And
Yeah.
like that, I love that so much because sometimes you just gotta fucking dance, man.
Yes. And David made me some stickers, like phone stickers of those 3 patties dancing.
Yeah.
And I love them and use them probably a little too much.
You guys, like, you had a printout of stickers, right? What in one of the issues in the back. Was it the actual dances? I'm forgetting now, but
And I think we have a little paper doll that
Yeah,
was
that's what it
the
was.
stickers.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And then we have David did a sheet of sticker. Denise, do you have those stickers? David did a page of stickers of the FML characters as cats,
Oh my God,
Yeah.
I can't wait to see this.
which is so dumb and cute and also fucking fantastic.
Wow, that is awesome.
That, oh my God, that needs to
what-
go into mass production
Yeah.
ASAP. I love Patty Cake.
So
Patty
there's
Cat
Mom and Glory and Riley, and there's Lydia,
Yeah.
and Susan and Savvy and Dad and Lil and Grim.
Cake. Ooh, it's Catty Cake.
Catty Cake. There
Yes,
it is.
there you go.
We found it. We found it.
We found it.
Perfect.
Well, Kelly,
Yeah.
we have just taken way too much of your time here.
Monopolized your
We told
time.
you an hour, and we are at 1:10. Let me ask you one final question here before we
Yeah,
get chatted, if that's okay. And I apologize if this is sort of gotcha journalism a little bit. Please
Gotcha.
feel free to expand on this idea or shut it down however you want to. But this idea sort of centers on legacy, okay? And again, that might be a big question. But, in a lot of ways, as we spoke about in this conversation, it kind of feels like FML and Pretty Deadly, they feel like the most Kelly Sue books in your entire bibliography, in my opinion. You've got FML is this hilarious sort of fever dream that just refuses to follow the rules. And then you also have Pretty Deadly, this beautiful meditation on, it's sort of set in this mythological alternate reality of the West.
Mhm.
However, it seems like, and you could totally tell me if you see something different, but it feels like when people talk about your career, often what happens is people bring up, Captain Marvel, or they'll bring up, Historia,
Mhm.
or something that you've worked on at the Big Two. So I'm just curious, I'm sure you're proud of your Big Two work. Does it ever peeve you a little bit that these are like the first things they bring up as sort of your IP Big Two books as sort of like the centerpiece of your career?
No, here's an obnoxious thing to say. Because I write everything like I own it.
Sure.
I think what does irritate me is if I had to rank my writing, I think Historia might be the best writing I've ever done. And
I
it
can see that.
annoys me that I don't own it. That just, and I don't mean, how do you compare something like writing, right?
Yeah.
FML takes so many more risks. It's an entirely different thing. I'm extraordinarily proud of it because of the nature of it. I think issue 5 is a little weak, and I know why it's a little weak. It's trying to be a monthly comic, which I will never be good at because it takes me time to figure stuff out. I'm not a fast writer, and I won't just fucking turn it in.
That shows, by the way. I just want to say that, like FML, there's no way you could do this on, I don't think, at least in a healthy way, on a monthly basis.
I can get about 4 issues out in a row, and then I can't.
Mhm.
And then something happens, and I need to figure something out. I eat through that time.
Mhm.
It's not like every 4 issues I have a problem. It's we bank 4 issues and we're way ahead, and then I run into problems that take more time, and I end up eating away at that lead time that we had.
Just ghost machine it.
Yeah, and it's just like, it's just the way I'm built. If I could change it, if I could wiggle my nose and write faster, I would, but I can't, and I won't sacrifice either the ambition or the quality of it. And I don't think I nailed issue 5, and that just is what it is, and it irritates me. But it's a far harder swing FML than Historia, even though Historia is very bombastic and the artist just did masterwork, all 3 of them. In a way, like, I'm the kid that did a puppet show of the Oresteia in 4th grade, so like.
That made somebody in the background laugh.
Yeah. So in a way, I was born to do Historia. I've been training for that my whole life. There's a different, riskier, more difficult thing with FML, but I think I've executed. If I could only give somebody one thing as a writing sample, I would give them Historia. It's less of a stretch, but it's executed about as well as I did what I wanted to do there. And I think we stuck all of the landings.
Gotcha. And Eisner.
Yeah, a couple of them. And so I'm very proud of that. But I don't take a job if I don't think I have a point of view. The Marvel Universe is the longest running continuous narrative in human history, and I got to sew on that quilt, and that's a big deal. So no shame. It doesn't bug me. It bugs me that I don't own what at the moment I think is my best work, but I ain't dead yet.
That was going to be my next point. You're not dead yet. You got plenty of future. Who knows what's going to happen? Because I mean, you're killing it with FML. I know that for me, Chris gave me homework. He sometimes gives me homework before the interview, so it'll sometimes be stuff I've read, something I haven't read. I'll say this. I have not liked a Captain Marvel comic, but I am enjoying your run, your different runs of Captain Marvel, and I'm finding out that Chris actually knows how to suggest things properly.
You're just now finding that out? Just now?
I'm kidding. It's sarcasm, buddy.
Well, Kelly, I think the sort of the caveat to you not owning the character is that in a lot of ways, like Swamp Thing with Alan Moore and Dennis O'Neil with The Question, no one for the rest of time, I don't think, will be able to say the name Captain Marvel without saying Kelly Sue DeConnick in that same breath, because you have created, I think, sort of the modern, I mean, and I know you give a lot of credit to, I think it was Steve Wacker, the editor on the book as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously you had Dexter Soy on the book there at the beginning, and you had other, pencilers
Felipe
on there.
Andrade, Emma Ríos, David Lopez. Yeah, no, a ton of really extraordinary collaborators on that book. But yeah, I mean, no matter what else I accomplish, I'm probably, Captain Marvel will be at least in the first sentence of my obituary. And I'm fine with that.
Higher, further, faster, baby.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. And every time I do a con appearance and someone shows up and tells me what that character meant to them, and now we're at this point where they'll be like, when I was a kid, and I'm just like, wait, what? Shut up.
Hold on, wait, no, don't do that.
Yeah. But that means a lot to me. It was also, it's the first time I ever saw a little boy at a con tell me his favorite character was a female superhero, and that changes things, and that felt really good. So there's no shame, there's no irritation. Pleased and proud and honored. And hey, well, as we're pivoting out of this and wrapping up, I'll give you I'm working right now on the 4th arc of Pretty Deadly with Emma, which is about the character of Big Alice, and it's a Viking tale. And also, we announced this at Malaga, but I don't think anybody picked up on it. But I was talking to Matt about the 2nd arc of FML and what I wanted to do, and he was like, well, you know what you should do? I was like, what should I do?
Here comes Matt with
And
his good ideas again.
yeah, I know.
God
He's
damn it, Matt.
fucking rife with them. It's very annoying. It's like those Spaniards and their prettiness. But he's like, you know what, you should let me write it. And I was like, what? And then he was serious. It was like the first arc is about the mom and the son. Let me do the second arc and let it be about the dad and the daughter.
Mm.
And I was like, that feels very unsafe and uncomfortable in a way that is like, oh, as an artist, that's the direction I should go, versus unsafe and uncomfortable, like I need to run away from it. There's a guy with a knife in the alley. And so we talked to David about it, and we talked to Dark Horse about it, and we don't have it calendared for when I can't tell you when it's going to come out, but we've been talking story, and we know where it's going, and we know how we're going to make use of the centering then of those two characters instead of and I think it's kind of neat because I don't think anybody's ever done anything like that before either.
No, that's really exciting. Absolutely.
I love the teamwork.
Yeah.
And the discussion.
Matt, such a girl dad.
Yeah.
Such a girl dad.
Well, Kelly, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here on the show. Again, as we said earlier, we took way too much of your time. We told you an hour. We're 20 minutes over that. So first of all, apologies for that. But also want to say, my gosh, just so great. And you said a moment ago how you had a little boy come up to you and tell you that like Captain Marvel was the first favorite character of his. And that's the first time you ever had that happen to you. I want to say, and there might be a little bit of Mandela effect, but I want to say your Captain Marvel run might be the first sort of female-led book that I read and actually like really truly loved as well. So there's 3, Aaron, 3 alls. So we need one more. After picking up, as I said earlier, FML #1, I knew that was going to be a series that I wanted to not only recommend to Aaron, but also continue on with. And I think that to end this conversation, there's only one proper way to do it. Okay. And I need to tell everyone here that's listening, stay sharp, stay hidden, and never forget, salvation lies in the heaviest of metal and the darkest of ink.
Yeah.
That's right. All right. Well, Kelly, anything else? You did a little bit of teasing there, both with Pretty Deadly and FML. Is there anything else you want to sort of tease or broadcast before we let you go?
No, there's one other big project that I'm working on, but it is not announced and won't be for a while. But I will say it's going to be in a graphic novel format. So
okay, we'll press end on this, and then we're going to mine Kelly for some info. Just kidding.
All right.
We don't do that. Well, Kelly, again, what a pleasure. So great to have you on. Would love to have you back on at some point down the road. But until then, take care, and we'll talk to you then.
All right. Thank you.